All men are born free and equal, and each man is entitled to life, liberty, and the pursuit of horse racing. So wrote Banjo Paterson in 1914 in his tongue-in-cheek Australian Declaration of Independence. Horse racing as we know it today may have begun with the British, as so many sports did, but we defy anyone to find a nation that loves it more than Australia. They love it so much that the pinnacle of the sport is literally the race that stops the nation. Governments grant a public holiday, on a Tuesday no less, not even a long weekend, just a single sacred day in the middle of the week. Schools pause, because this is a part of a child's education. It's fundamental to a young Australian's understanding of their homeland, as the First Fleet, the Eureka Rebellion, Gallipoli, or learning the words of another Banjo Paterson classic, Waltzing Matilda. 100,000 pilgrims gather at the hallowed ground. Millions more tune in. The Caulfield Cup has been run. The Cox Plate has crowned its champion. The Melbourne Spring Racing Carnival reaches its crescendo. It's Australian to its core. Its home is Victoria. It bears the name of its city. It's time for the Melbourne Cup. And this is the Sporting Almanac Podcast.
Welcome back.
Have I missed anything? I haven't really been following sport while I'm gone, so
I missed a lot.
I can only assume Liverpool are still top of the Premier League. And it's still a two-horse race in the Formula One, and the Jets are still winless.
Jets are still... Well, no, the Jets are not still winless.
No, I know the Jets are not. That was brilliant. It's not worth anything.
Yeah, I've missed a lot. You've missed a lot. The sporting world waits for no man or woman.
Yeah.
Hull KR winning the Super League.
Yeah.
And the treble.
Yeah, saw the highlight. Fantastic.
Only the fifth team ever, as we discussed. An American won the Men's Archery World Cup.
Wow, that's a shock, as discussed.
A Korean won the Women's.
Less of a shock, as discussed.
France won the men's team event.
Brilliant.
Korea won the women's.
No shock there.
And the US won the mixed, for those archery connoisseurs after our last episode.
I love the way you're updating our listeners, but really you're updating me here because I have genuinely been out the loop. Obviously, I'm aware of the Super League and the Premier League and everything else. Good to be back.
Yeah. Swanning around America.
Swanning around America. I did go to an NHL game.
Yeah.
Which was fun. I saw the Nashville Predators beat the Vancouver Canucks 2-1, which was very good, actually.
Nice.
Would recommend.
That sounds like it would have been a lot of fun. Dodgers Blue Jays as we speak. 1-1.
1-1, yeah. Tied, poised.
Shohei.
Going to be a very good series, that.
Yeah, it will be. But we've waffled on here. We're back with Australian horse racing.
I'm so excited about this one. I did not realise how big horse racing is in Australia. It is
massive.
The third biggest sport in Australia.
Yeah, third biggest spectators.
Behind, can you guess which two sports?
Yeah, easily. Aussie rules and rugby league.
Yep. Fuck Collingwood.
Naturally. But bigger than Union. Bigger than cricket.
Yeah, it's incredible.
It's second only to the United States in terms of the number of horses starting in races each year. Third on global prize money distributed annually.
Yeah. Incredible.
One of the biggest employers in Australia. Something like 250,000 people employed in the industry, give or take. I'm sure Australians will correct us.
I'm sure they will, but no, it's incredible. It's an incredibly popular sport.
God. Yeah, this is fun. I love horse racing. You love horse racing. Neither of us know a great deal about horse racing, as we have professed on our Kentucky Derby and on our Grand National episodes. But it's one that captures the hearts and minds.
We've already started off emphasising just how much Australians love horse racing. Like, I couldn't believe, and you've pulled out some of the stats, like, I think technically the United States might have a couple more racetracks nowadays than Australia, but they, pound for pound, like, as with most sports, pound for pound, the Aussies have it hands down. It's incredible. For a country with less than a tenth of the population of the United States, they are just behind them in the money rankings. They've got basically the same number of racetracks as the USA, And as you say, so many people are employed by it, and it's so popular. And there's 100,000 people going to the Melbourne Cup every year.
Yeah.
And it has been for decades and decades. It's been running since 1861, and they have not missed a year, including for 2 world wars, which I didn't realise.
It's insane, isn't it? Like I don't know how true this is, so take this with a pinch of salt, but I enjoyed it, so I'm going to regale you with it.
Oh, go for it.
I think about 300,000 people have some sort of interest in like syndicates that own about 30,000 horses training in Australia. If that's real, that's insane.
There's 27 million people. That's like more than 1% of the country's population.
And then they've got
that's a mad stat.
Something like 374 race clubs that conduct 2,694. So let's call it 2,700 meetings a year on 360 race courses all over Australia for
392.
392.
Now.
Geez, like okay, and then the prize money is somewhere in the region of $425 to $450 million Australian dollars.
That's crazy.
What an industry!
I've got there's various quotes which have been attributed to various people over the years. That basically say that when Australia was being built and expanded upon, any settlers finding a good spot to form a town basically would build free amenities to get it going. The first one they build, depending on who you ask, and this is probably based on who the residents of the town were, it was either a church or a jail. The second one was invariably a pub. And the third one was a racecourse. And there's various quotes attributed to various people along those lines. And after those were built and some time passed, they probably built a cemetery as well. But it became so ingrained from the early days in the expansion of Australia, not just in Victoria. It became popular in Sydney first and then moved over to Victoria, obviously, once Melbourne was founded as a city, but incredibly soon afterwards. And I do have a bit of the history of it. It is very interesting.
Well, yeah, I do want to hear the history because the history is always interesting. But should I quickly tell anyone who's cared to tune in what the Melbourne Cup is very quickly?
I mean, you can do, I suppose. That probably is the best way to frame it.
It's an annual Group 1 handicap thoroughbred horse race held in Melbourne, obviously, at the Flemington Racecourse on a 3.2 kilometre track for 3-year-olds and older. It's conducted by Victoria Racing Club. It forms part of the Melbourne Spring Racing Carnival. CC the intro. It is the richest 2-mile handicap race in the world and one of the richest turf races, full stop. It starts at 3 p.m. on the first Tuesday of November. It's known locally, as you have already very eloquently delivered in the intro, known as the race that stops the nation.
Yeah.
That's it. So how do we get to it? The history.
How do we get to it? By going back to the beginning of Australia again, essentially. I mean, the Melbourne Cup itself was first run in 1861, on the 7th of November 1861, which was confusingly the first Thursday of November, because it is now run on the first Tuesday of November, which is, of course, as all Victorians will know, or certainly everyone in Melbourne will know, a public holiday.
Yeah, which is
as
just
mentioned in the intro.
Yeah, I mean, like, middle of the week, guys, yeah. Like, don't worry about it. Stop everything. There's a horse race going on.
Yeah, and it was like the 1865. So it started in 1861. By 1865, it was already a public holiday. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's go back in time. Spin the wheels back in time. So, obviously, horse racing, as we know, began in Britain with the English classics, the St. Leger, the Oaks, the Derby, 1776 to 1780. We went through that a bit in episode 1, the Grand National episode, of course. Most of the popular races of the time were equal weight races for 3-year-old horses, which is a concept which has spread over the world. Obviously, the US Triple Crown, 3-year-old horses, non-handicap races, the Grand Prix de Paris, 1836, that started, that's the same. The Belmont Stakes was the first of the Triple Crown events, that was 1867, so incredibly old sport. Obviously came out of the late 18th century in England. So thoroughbred racing, I think we briefly mentioned thoroughbred racing, sort of like where it comes from, but I think it could be worth mentioning it a bit more in the sense that thoroughbreds are a specific breed of horse, which originated basically from free stallions that were brought over from variously being captured in wars and other things, which were the Bailey Turk, the Darley Arabian, and the Godolphin Arabian. So free fantastic horses of exotic breeds brought to England and then bred prominently with a mix of local mares, some of which were things like the Irish Hobby, which was a breed of horse obviously came out of Ireland, and some mixed imported breeds as well for mares. But the long story short is pretty much all modern thoroughbred racehorses trace their lineage to about 28 stallions, but mostly those three throughout the 18th and 19th century, but mostly the three that I mentioned. So the popularity of early English races led to breeding practices to make horses run faster at a young age. Basically, shorter, faster races are good for young horses, and longer or more technically difficult races, as we mentioned in episode 1, the Grand National, are better for older horses. That's basically it. I just want to bring you up to date with that.
Do you know, have you got anything on how the first horses even got to Australia?
I do, Ben.
Yeah.
And I will continue now because the very next line is, horses first arrived. You know me so well.
Go ahead.
Horses first arrived in Australia in 1788 with the first fleet that sailed into Botany Bay and formed the colony that would become modern Sydney.
The Lady Penrhyn, for those who are interested in the boat name.
There you go.
Yeah. Sorry.
I didn't have that written down, so thank you. I appreciate that.
Interjection. But yes, sorry.
A good interjection. So where was I? Over the next couple of decades, some part thoroughbreds and eventually the first pure thoroughbred, which was a horse named Northumberland, he arrived in 1802, and the first formalised race meets began in 1810 in Sydney, and by 1825 the Sydney Turf Club was founded. That was in existence till 2011, and it only ceased to be in existence when it merged with the Australian Jockey Club to become the Australian Turf Club at that point. Melbourne, as a city, was first planned out in 1835. Presumably, once the church and pub had been built, a racetrack was then built, as was tradition. But it only took until 1838 for the Melbourne Turf Club to be founded. For the first couple of years, Batman's Hill hosted the new Turf Club's meets, but an area known as the Saltwater Flats near what is now the Maribyrnong River, I hope I pronounced that right, was identified as a superior area for flat racing. The Lang family who owned it gave their blessing to use it, and for a decade it was known as simply the Melbourne Racecourse, or simply the Racecourse if you lived in Melbourne, obviously. But it soon took on the name of the little town you had to drive through to access it, and that, of course, was Flemington.
Yes, the Flemington Racecourse.
Indeed. Had a lovely hill overlooking what became the ending before the grandstands were built as well. It's a very good place to do flat horse racing. So the Melbourne Turf Club was superseded by the Port Phillip Turf Club, and then by the Victoria Turf Club, that formed a rivalry with the Victoria Jockey Club. First it was a friendly rivalry, but later it became more intense. But basically what it led to, in order to try and become the preeminent organisation, the Victoria Turf Club, set up in 1861, in an attempt to establish its predominance, they decided to hold a new race with a big purse at Flemington, which was, drumroll please, the first Melbourne Cup. So this is an interesting thing, and this is not something I've ever thought about in terms of horse racing, but we thought about it a lot in terms of other sports. It wasn't universally well received. It's a kind of a similar thing to the amateur versus professionalism thing that we see in a lot of sports, where the wealthy elite want to preserve amateurism, and the lower and upwardly mobile classes want to earn money from the sport. In this case, the race being proposed as a handicap race, which would level the field and make it more, make betting more
accessible. Yeah,
accessible. That's a good way of putting it. Yeah, and obviously the prize money on offer as well, being quite high, relatively speaking, made those of the old way of think basically correctly that it would encourage gambling, as it obviously did.
Good judgment, to be fair.
Fair judgment, yeah. But what they considered to be the real purpose of racing was to improve the thoroughbred stock. They didn't agree, obviously, with making money out of it. They were rich already.
Yeah, the king's sport, hence the nickname.
Exactly. Melbourne, though, was a very different place to when it was founded a quarter of a century before. The gold rush had happened. It had brought a lot of wealth into the area, so for rich and previously poor alike. And both this nouveau riche and the better paid workers craved recreation. As a result of that, they had expendable income in which to buy and train horses or in which to gamble on the races. So, to no one's surprise, certainly no one who's listened to this podcast for any amount of time, the event was a huge success because
we're still here.
Lots of people with expendable income want to go and watch sport. And yes, also the fact it's still going a long time later.
Yeah.
Within 20 years, it was already hitting the 100,000 mark in terms of spectators. It was only about 4,000 for the first race, but it built up pretty exponentially from there. It became very popular very quickly. As I mentioned, became a public holiday very quickly as well in Melbourne.
Can I quickly mention something about its popularity, which is I think was very odd. You know, the first I read this that the first turnout was good, but perhaps not quite as good as expected because it actually happened to coincide with the deaths of two explorers, very famous Australian explorers, William John Wills and Robert O'Hara Burke. Yeah. And they did the expedition from Melbourne up towards Darwin, through the cross-sectionally through the middle of Australia, which I don't think had been mapped or charted before.
No.
And then it was ill-fated, and I think nearly everybody on the expedition, bar a couple of people, died. But the news, they died in the summer, but the news filtered through because of the times and coincided with the first Melbourne Cup.
Which is bad luck.
Yes.
Obviously, more bad luck for Wills and Burke, but also for the young event. But obviously, it didn't hold it back. But it is crazy to think this is obviously, it's a time where these incredibly, I hardly have to mention, dangerous expeditions were taking place within the lifetime of an event, which is still going on to this day.
Yeah.
Which, I don't know, it bridges not the entire history of Australia, but so much of the history of Australia is so fundamental to its history, and that's why I like it.
Yeah, it's mad.
I didn't realise it went this deep.
Have you got more on the first race? Because I got a little bit if you want it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, Jesus Christ, Ben.
No, I mean, I'm just
first race.
I'm just so
on
eager,
the first
mate.
This is literally. I'm not even joking. This is my next note. That first race on the first Thursday in November 1861 was won by a horse named Archer.
It was
at 6-1 odds.
Yeah.
I mean, you jump in at any point.
No. I'm just teasing
so
you. I'm just teasing you. Go on.
You're teasing the information out of me as if you need to. 4,000 fans, as I said, but earning a not unimpressive £710 and a hand-beaten gold watch as a prize. I don't know how much the hand-beaten gold watch was worth, but £710 is about £75,000 today.
Good.
Or 150,000 Australian dollars, or 100,000 US dollars if you prefer. Very easy numbers to work out, given the current exchange rates.
Good money, but not today's money.
Not today's money.
Which we'll come to.
Not shabby at all. Archer followed up the following year by winning again at 2-1 in 1862. But, and do you know the story of 1863, Ben?
The third effort is a scandal.
Absolute scandal. So, any chance he had of becoming the first horse to three-peat was lost when his entry was sent via telegram on the morning of the deadline. But the Sydney-based owners of Archer didn't realise it was a public holiday in Melbourne, so the message wasn't delivered until the following day, when the deadline had passed and his entry was denied as a result. Now, obviously, this is a Sydney-based horse with the Sydney Turf Club.
Yeah, Sydney-Melbourne rivalry. Yeah, New South Wales, Victoria stuff.
Yeah, it's early days of it, but it was going on even then. So there were rumours, obviously, firstly, of animosity between those clubs and between the colonies at that point themselves, which may have prevented any sort of leniency being offered to Archer. But bookmakers also may have been involved, and they may have not wanted a clear favourite to run. In any case, he was refused entry, and all the other Sydney-based horses withdrew from the race in protest, leaving a record low 7 horses in 1863, all of whom obviously were from Victoria. I don't know who won that, but
no, neither do I.
Is it legit? Who knows?
I mean, to put it into perspective, though, that the defending the title and then going for the three-peat. So only one horse has ever done the three-peat, who we're going to speak about later, Macby Diva.
Of course.
But it would be another 70 years until a horse would defend it, which was Peter Pan. And then I think it's 100 years later when Rain Lover won in 68 and 69. So Peter Pan, he didn't win it twice in a row. He won it twice. And he was the next
32 and 34.
That's it. And then Rain Lover was the first one to defend it, which is 100 years later. To say Archer was screwed is an understatement.
He was. However, it should also be pointed out that had he been accepted, had he run that day, he would have been carrying what would, to this day, be a record handicap weight of 11 stone 4 pounds. That would have been still a record to this day in terms of a heavy handicap weight to carry, so he may not have been able to pull off the third anyway. but God, it would have been great to see him try.
We've already mentioned it, so I'll just say it. But like Maccabee Diva, when she won 3 in a row in 2005, her trainer is quoted as saying, "Go and find the youngest child on the course because they're the only person here who will have a chance of seeing this happen again in their lifetime."
Yeah.
And obviously,
which is, a good quote.
It's a great quote because it's also true of archery. You know, like all those caveats aside, it literally would have been 130, 40 years until it was done again.
You'd have to have found a baby to have had a chance to see 2 in a row done. You'd have had to have found a pretty young child to have a chance of seeing the 2-1 in the 1930s done.
Yeah.
70 years later. So he's not basing it on nothing.
No.
It's not just a hyperbole.
It's not hyperbole. Good way of putting it. I really like the legend of Archer, that he supposedly walked over 800 kilometres to get to Flemington when he actually just got the boat.
Yes. I didn't know if you were going to clarify that. I didn't know if I was going to burst your bubble then. I was like, he actually just got the boat. But great story.
Great story.
And you know what we say about good stories? Do we need to correct it?
Nah.
It doesn't matter, does it?
Nah.
Not doing anyone any harm. As I said, it was originally, that first event was the first Thursday of November. It is and has been since 1875 on the first Tuesday of November. And I'm skipping forward to 1875 so I can skip a year forward to 1876.
I was going to say, any other noticeable races in the late 19th century?
So 1876 was notable for 2 reasons, one of which was very tragic, and one of which was really remarkable and literally can never be repeated due to
it being illegal
laws, basically. So the first one, the sad one, it happened 2 months before the event when a steamship called the City of Melbourne, appropriately, was carrying many passengers, but also some very important cargo. 13 racehorses, including many serious Melbourne Cup contenders, including the favourite. In a gale, it was hit by multiple rogue waves, which washed much of the cargo overboard. Sadly, that included many of the horses, despite what was described as very, very hard and very, very brave efforts from the crew to save them. Sadly, 11 horses lost their lives that day.
11 of 13 favourites, apparently. As in, like, the big runners.
Yeah, including the favourite for the Cup itself, a horse named Nemesis. But if only the story ended there, Ben, because in a rather disgusting side note to all this...
Diabolical stuff now.
Do you want to tell this one?
What about the bookmakers?
Yeah, it's disgusting.
Presenting the captain of the ship with a purse to thank him for the money that the shipwreck saved the bookmakers on bets placed on the horses that perished. That bit.
It's grim, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because, I mean, for those who aren't aware of just basic rules of betting, is when favourites win, bookmakers lose out. When outsiders win, bookmakers win, because obviously people don't bet on outsiders. While the odds might be higher, the bookmakers have to set the lower odds at a slightly more generous rate to get people to bet. And when those horses end up winning, obviously it screws them over a bit more. So basically, this bunch of bookmakers, completely publicly, completely brazenly, went up to this captain who had just, him and his crew had tried their absolute darndest to save these horses' lives, and gave him some money to say thank you for killing 11 horses.
Yeah.
Bad
behaviour.
Grim.
Yeah. It's not hard to see why certain professions get themselves a reputation, shall we say.
I mean, certainly at this period of history, like bookmakers, moneylenders, lawyers, constantly throughout history, they've only got themselves to blame, guys.
Yeah, anyway, so this story gets happier.
Don't take it personally, Ben.
Mate, I was just going to let that wash over me, but now you're coming back with more pointed remarks.
Happy part of the story?
How does it get happier? Yeah, because it does get happier. This is some beautiful sporting stuff.
That's exactly what it is. This is still a story which is it's a magical story for all of Australia, all of Victoria, but particularly for Geelong, where the participant of this story arose from. So when the race went ahead, obviously, despite the loss of the horses, and it did so with actually a very big field, 33 horses entered that year, and it was won for the first time by a filly, a 3-year-old named Bruceus.
Good effort.
Yeah, I had to write that one down phonetically. But she was ridden by a jockey named Peter St. Albans. What was more extraordinary than the horse, which was pretty extraordinary. She was a pretty extraordinary animal in her own right.
Very extraordinary. She's the only horse, I think, to have won the VRC Derby, the Melbourne Cup, and the VRC Oaks in the space of 6 days. Insane.
Pretty incredible.
But yes, sorry, you were talking about Peter and his age.
So, we joke that Arsenal, for example, keep picking literal children to put in their matchday squads, which they do, to be fair.
Yeah.
15 years old, often. Peter St Albans was listed as being age 13 for the event, but...
Which is a lie.
That was a lie. Peter St Albans was actually 11 years old when he rode Briseis to victory. He was actually born Michael Bowden in Geelong, as I mentioned, in 1864. He became known as Peter from a young age. In fact, his family always called him Peter. I presume it was a middle name. He took the surname, St Albans, from the stud that he was born at and that he worked at throughout his childhood. He first rode Briseis at the 1876 Doncaster when she was a then 2-year-old filly. As a 2-year-old filly, she was allowed a certain amount of weight lower than some of the other horses, which meant, I think basically she was allowed something like 5 stone 11 or something like that. But that meant she had to get a really light jockey to ride her because it's the jockey's weight plus weights basically added to make up the weight that the horse is carrying. So in order to find a jockey that weighed that little, they had to find a child, basically. And Peter had worked closely with the horse, had a really good bond with the horse, so he was invited to ride her. He was invited to ride her again for the Melbourne Cup in the spring. And as mentioned, he rode into history, winning by 2 lengths before being carried around on celebrating shoulders after the race, which is a lovely image.
It's the largest ever field of the Melbourne Cup at 30. Well, at the time it was, and it was said in, I think, reporting to have been won by a mere child.
Which he was a kid.
Yeah, he's an actual kid.
I mean, at least the kids at Arsenal are like, well, 5'10" or something by then. He was a child. Incredible.
Yeah. And
incredible.
The reason there's like such mystique around him is because of what you were saying about his age and his upbringing. It's like his birthday and his parents, I think, are something of a mystery. Like it's a bit speculative, really.
Yeah, to put it mildly. Because of the mystery sort of around his birth and the way things weren't very well recorded back then, it has led to rumours that he came from a Aboriginal background
which
as well.
False, I think.
Which probably aren't true, yeah. But it just goes to show sort of how stories develop. But what is factual is that Peter continued riding as a jockey. He actually rode a few more times at the Melbourne Cup, and he did quite well. He was a runner-up in 2 races, 1877 and 1880. He came second in those events. He quit riding age 19 when he had a fall, but he became a trainer, and he trained another runner-up in the Melbourne Cup. So he got his win nice and early because it was all runners-up after that. But he trained Forest King in the... Oh, sorry, that was the 1891 Caulfield Cup, not the Melbourne Cup. I do apologise, but still.
Another legendary
had some
race.
Success as a trainer as well.
Yeah.
Indeed. Yeah, sadly, the end of this story is not quite so happy because he died in 1898. He was only 33 when he died.
Whoa.
But his funeral in Geelong was said to be the biggest the town had ever seen to that point. And the Geelong Racing Club, to this day, award the Peter St Albans Trophy to its champion jockey every year, which I think is a nice ending. Well remembered, very, very well remembered in Geelong. But yeah, amazing story.
It is an amazing story. That's what legends are made of.
Legend is the word for it, yeah.
Yeah.
Legend lives on.
It does. Where do we go from the heights of Peter St Albans' victory in 1876?
Well, the next thing I have, and I think you know what the next thing I have, is the greatest horse in Australian history, even though he wasn't actually from Australia, which I'll point out to
he had a great name, though.
All our New Zealand-based listeners.
Can I just fill in the gap very briefly then?
Please
do.
And
I mean very briefly. We mentioned that Peter St Albans had won the biggest field in Melbourne Cup history at the time. The actual largest ever Melbourne Cup field is 39 runners, which was contested in 1890, with the champion Carbine winning and also setting a weight carrying record of 10 stone 5 pounds or 66 kilograms for those in metric, which is unlikely to ever be beaten. He carried 20...
I don't think it can be beaten.
Yeah, because he carried 24 kilos more than the second place horse, Highborn, which is 53 pounds difference. So yeah, that was just to bring people up to speed and then give you a run up onto, well, what's his name?
The horse in question, of course, is Farlap, which,
Yes.
as you mentioned, is a great name. That's spelled Pharlap.
Yeah.
2 words. I think it's essentially the Thai word for lightning he's named after.
Yeah, it's the literal translation is sky flash.
That's a good literal translation. That's fun.
Yeah.
So as I mentioned, Australia's greatest ever racehorse, not actually born in Australia. He was born in New Zealand, in Timaru on South Island, on October the 4th, 1926. I'll jump straight ahead and say he won the 1930 Melbourne Cup.
He did.
Alongside many, many other wins in top-tier events, including an Australian Derby, a couple of Cox Plates as well. At one point, during a 46-race spell, he won 37 of those races that he entered.
He was nicknamed the Wonder Horse and the Red Terror.
The Red Terror is such a good nickname. I love that.
And you can see why, if he's cleaning up like that.
So he was of good pedigree. His older brother Night March was actually the 1929 Melbourne Cup winner, and I'll come to that shortly. Just giving that as a nod to the role that genetics do play in horse breeding, obviously. So trainer Harry Telford knew this pedigree, and he persuaded American businessman David J. Davis to purchase the horse for what seemed like a bargain at that point for 160 guineas, which is about £9,000 in today's money. £18,000 Australian dollars, £12,000 US dollars, if you prefer, which Davis thought was a rip-off once the gangly, awkward and wart-covered colt arrived in Australia. Davis was absolutely furious that this sack of skin and bones had been bought for so much money, and Telford managed to placate him by promising to train the horse for nothing in return for 2/3 of any future winnings.
Good deal.
It turned into a good deal, but at the time...
It's got Air Jordan's vibes, that.
It does, and yes, we're all talking in hindsight. At this point, Telford was not a good trainer, and Davis presumably thought this was a complete bust investment. He was wrong. But not right away. So Telford assigned the awkward youngster to a quiet stable hand, a 22-year-old named Tommy Woodcock.
Yeah.
Who called the horse Bobby. The two developed an extraordinary bond. Woodcock talked to him, slept near him, and rode him down to the beach each morning. Farlap would whinny when Tommy entered the yard and sulk when he was gone, literally.
Apparently he wouldn't take food off anyone other than him and stuff like that.
No, it's incredible how close horses can get to individuals, and individuals, of course, to horses.
Did he sleep outside his stable on nights of races as well or something?
Yeah. He was never very far from him.
Pretty beautiful stuff, though.
Certainly when you've got a close bond. It is lovely. I mean, I can see why people fall in love with these amazing animals.
For sure.
So he was gelded to calm his temperament. Do I need to explain what that is to anyone who doesn't know?
The nuts are gone.
Yeah, so castrated essentially, which calms his temperament and also prevented the strain on his legs from a heavy stallion's neck, as the neck grows heavier if this isn't done. But he grew and grew anyway into a magnificent child. He was over 17 hands tall, which is 17 times 4 inches. So what, 68 inches tall. So yeah, nearly 6 foot tall.
Divide that by 12, yeah. There you go.
Yeah.
Maths.
He was 79 inches around the girth, and he was built like a draft horse at the back. His plain, workmanlike head and thin neck concealed the true engine of his power. Enormous hindquarters, which was so perfect, the one veterinary observer, a man named Dr. Stuart Mackay, wrote that we could look at 1,000 races and never see anything so perfect as his croup, thigh, gaskins, and cannons. Not entirely sure what all those things are, but I hope that paints a picture of the fact this was a beast of a horse.
A special horse, yeah.
Once he grew into it. He was a laughingstock at first. He finished unplaced in his first 4 starts. He seemed like a failure in the making, before he finally broke his maiden in the Rosehill Juvenile Handicap to end his second year. By his 10th start, though, something had changed. His stride had lengthened, his lungs had developed and deepened, and his calm rhythm belied devastating power. In his 3-year-old season, Farlap began his ascent. After a couple of early defeats, he ran a stirring second to the brilliant Mollison at the Chelmsford Stakes, and then he went on a rampage, winning the Rosehill Guineas, the AJC and the VRC derbies, both in world record times at that point, the Craven Plate and more. He was thrust into the 1929 Melbourne Cup, arguably a bit too early, against a lot of older horses, including, as I mentioned, his brother Night March. Carrying 104 pounds under substitute jockey Bobby Lewis, Phar Lap tore to the lead and stayed there until the last furlong, until he faded at that point to end up finishing third. So a respectable first appearance.
The time period of this relevant, though, because it was around the Great Depression?
Yes. So this was obviously a lot of ordinary Australians, a lot of not ordinary Australians as well, a lot of rich Australians had their lives completely turned upside down at this point, because this is just after the Great Depression. I think that was October, wasn't it? So this will be weeks, a matter of weeks after the stock markets crashed, after the world was turned on its head.
Began in 29 and lasted through the early 1930s, the Great Depression.
Yeah, certainly into the early to mid 1930s, yeah.
Yeah.
So very much relevant, as you say, in terms of giving a beacon of hope.
He was an underdog, and he inspired hope, right? Like, it's because, as you say, he came from a fairly humble beginning, and people love an underdog.
They do. And it was after that defeat in the Melbourne Cup that his legend really started to flourish. He got a regular jockey, a man named Jim Pike, and he embarked on one of the greatest streaks in racing history. He swept the VRC St Leger, the King's and Governor's Plates, the AJC Plate, the Cumberland Stakes, the Morphettville Cups, with absurd ease. He was making it look easy. In the AJC Plate, he annihilated Night March by 10 lengths, avenging his cup loss entirely. And by 1930, the nickname was there. The Red Terror had become a national hero. So complete was his dominance that fields shrank and owners shipped horses abroad rather than face him, because they just didn't see the point. And then came November the 1st, 1930, as Tommy Woodcock was leading Phar Lap home from morning work. A car sped past and a gunshot rang out.
Yeah.
Bullets whizzed by but missed the horse and the man, fortunately. And the shooters were never caught. But that afternoon, Phar Lap went out and he won the Melbourne Stakes. And 3 days later, after a broken down transport had left him behind, and he barely arrived an hour before the start, he stormed home to win the Melbourne Cup, carrying 138 pounds, one of the heaviest imposts ever. Within a week, he'd won 4 major races and survived an assassination attempt. So if that doesn't forge a legend, I don't know what will.
He ran the 1930 Melbourne Cup at the shortest ever odds as well, didn't he? Because he was that damn big a favourite.
What was it, 8 to 11 or something?
11 to 8, yeah, I think.
8 to 11, I think it was. I think it was odds on.
Odds on, yeah. So
crazy.
Yeah, I mean, the most famous horse in the world of his day, put simply.
Indeed. So where do you go from there? The only thing, what his owners wanted to do, the only thing he could do really, was to try and break America, to try and become the biggest money winner of all time. In November 1931, he embarked on the ship Uli Maroa, bound for New Zealand, then transferred to the Monowai for the long Pacific voyage to America. His stall was converted into a small stable at sea, complete with a sand roll and a walking space, and Tommy Woodcock, of course, scarcely left his side for the entire journey. In fact, Phar Lap became even more agitated than usual when he was out of his sight. So after arriving in San Francisco in January 1932, Phar Lap was initially sent south to Tijuana, Mexico, to the Agua Caliente Handicap, which at the time was the richest race in the world, with $50,000 awarded to the winner, which is about $1.2 million in today's money, that's US dollars, or 0.9 million pounds or 1.8 million Australian dollars if you prefer. On March 20th, under jockey Billy Elliott, he started at odds of 1 to 5 in that race, racing in a brand new country in new conditions with little to no training since being shipped across the Pacific. He split a hoof during the race. He started poorly and ended up a long way behind the leaders, and he won by an absolute mile once he got going. He won in a course record 2 minutes, 2.8 seconds to take the spoils, and obviously the acclaim that came with it, and the $50,000, which probably went down quite nicely.
I imagine it did.
So, this is where the story takes a dark turn, because the Agua Caliente was his last ever race.
Horse racing always has this angle to it. Some nefarious dudes operating in these circles.
So, 2 weeks after the Agua Caliente, he was resting from a minor tendon injury at a ranch near San Francisco when he fell violently ill on April the 5th, 1932. He developed a fever, a racing heart, and severe colic. Woodcock tried to walk him through the pain, but by mid-afternoon, the giant had collapsed. He rested his head against Tommy's chest and died in his arms, blood streaming from his nostrils, which is very sad.
That is very sad. It's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Geezer looked after him like he was as his own pet, basically.
Yeah. So immediate accusations of poisoning started. Obviously, a lot of it being Australians or people associated with the horse accusing Americans of doing this. As obviously the next step for Phar Lap was to take on the American circuit, potentially win a lot of races, potentially lose bookmakers a lot of money, as we've mentioned previously. The horse's food was examined, an autopsy was scheduled. The autopsy revealed acute inflammation of the stomach and intestines, potentially due to eating dewy alfalfa, which might have caused the swelling, but there were some traces of arsenic detected as well later on. These were blamed on pesticides initially used at the farm. But in Australia, this didn't kill any of the rumours. They persisted. Lots of uncorroborated stories making the press of pills getting dropped into Phar Lap's stable. When Woodcock returned to Australia later in the year, he brought with him an incredible story. He blamed the death on gangsters. He cited one individual known to him only as the Brazilian as being in the area, potentially working on behalf of the bookmakers. So Woodcock's story was full of classic gangster story tropes, I guess you could say. So it's hard to be sure of the veracity of the story or whether this was potentially a guy who, having lost his, hasten to say his best friend, but,
yeah, maybe
a horse that meant a lot to him.
Yeah.
Whether he was heartbroken by the death of the horse or whether he was after a bit of pay, because obviously he lost also his primary source of income as well. He tried to carry on in America, but he didn't last long there. It was a few months later he went back to Australia. So it's hard to tell really whether he was telling the truth or not. An alternative theory emerged for Tommy Woodcock's story in 1989, which was 4 years after Woodcock's death, which I don't really like very much. Those rumoured that Woodcock himself may have accidentally poisoned the horse by misapplying an arsenic-based solution called Fowler's solution. That theory caused such a stir in Australia that it got to the point where a TV mock trial was held with actors presenting evidence to a jury from the public, basically, which then found Woodcock not guilty. And there's not a huge amount of evidence for this. It's just basically Fowler's solution was something used on horses that contained arsenic. And if the horse was poisoned by arsenic, this is a possible way it could have happened. But equally, the horse could have been poisoned, and there was very good motives for the horse to be poisoned as well. But until 2008, there was no actual evidence of poisoning. But some very, very good science in 2008, as I mentioned. Forensic testing was done on preserved hair, which was able to identify whether the arsenic was ingested, when it was ingested, and in what dose it was ingested. And they came to the conclusion that before the horse's death, he had ingested a very, very large amount of arsenic, way above a fatal amount. So
someone killed Phar Lap.
Someone killed Phar Lap. It's proof of that, but it's not proof of
Wouldn't have been
who or proof of intent.
It just would.
He'd been working with the horse for years. It would be a hell of a mistake to make.
The absence of a motive, as you say,
no, he would never have done it deliberately. We can say that.
The scale of the error required seems extreme.
I wouldn't bet on it.
No.
It's obviously, science is brilliant. The fact that they can say that with such definitive accuracy is amazing. Even, 70 years after the fact, more than 70 years after, 75 years after the fact. So 3/4 of a century later, they're able to show that he was killed by arsenic. They're just not able to show who. But ask me whether a skilled practitioner who loved the horse dearly and had worked with him closely for years would have made a mistake, or whether someone had the intent to kill him at that point, was able to sneak through and drop something in and get him to eat it. Yeah. I know which one I want to be true.
I know which one is more likely. I mean, the 1930s and 40s in Mexico and America, I wouldn't say it was necessarily a environment absent its issues with organised crime syndicates.
No, it's almost a stereotypical organised crime era.
And given all the reasons that you said, that just seems like the most logical inference to draw from the information available.
Well, one thing is also certain, and that is Tommy Woodcock remains, to this day, very, very well respected. And obviously Phar Lap remains regarded as the greatest in Australian and New Zealand history, for good reason.
Well, one of the greatest racehorses of all time.
Yeah. There was actually an American poll done, and bear in mind America's general lack of willingness to place anyone who's not an American in their top whatever lists. There's a top 100 racehorse list, and he came 22nd on it, which is pretty damn good, and also pretty good considering he never actually raced in America in the end. So fair play there.
He's so damn revered that there is a bronze statue of the horse himself at Flemington.
Indeed. There's also his hide stuffed and displayed at the Melbourne Museum as well. And also his heart is 14-pound heart, which is about twice the size of a normal horse heart, or normal thoroughbred heart, I should say, is preserved in Canberra as well.
Oh, nice. And our hero, Tommy Woodcock, there's a trophy named after him for the winning strapper of the winning horse
Indeed.
Of the Melbourne Cup. He was also like this is the other reason why I'm prepared to dismiss these disgusting smears on the man's name. He was like a really nice man. Like he care for a number of children, and like he didn't have I don't think he ever had his own children. I might be wrong about that, but he definitely cared for a number of other children from broken homes and things like that. And I also think he turned part of his residence into a apprentice jockey's like stable. Like
I have heard that. Yeah,
it's not a bloke who goes around massacring a horse he loves.
Again, there's no implication he would have done it deliberately, but
I don't even think he does it accidentally. Do you know, like that's such an egregious error. But yeah,
I'm more than happy with no evidence to suggest otherwise, and lots of potential motives for a nefarious action. I'm more than happy to say, on the balance of probabilities, that is more than likely. Yeah.
All right, where do we go from this legendary tale?
What have we got? I've got a few other ones that I can flick through quickly. I don't know what else you've got. I've got 1948.
Oh, go on. 1948, yeah. I like
1948. That. So, photo finishes.
Ooh.
We all know him. We all love him. The first ever photo finish was set up for the 1948 Melbourne Cup. And what are the odds, Ben, there would actually be a photo finish that year? And what are the odds that they would misplace the camera and get it wrong?
I would say high.
So they cocked it up first
time
out.
If VAR is anything to go by.
So the camera was installed, but it was installed slightly in the wrong place, a few feet off the actual finish line. So the image at the finish line was at an angle, so it allegedly showed the wrong horse winning, essentially, which was Rimfire, 66-1 outsider, ridden by a 15-year-old jockey, Ray Neville, which, don't get me wrong, is very, very impressive.
So old.
Just retire, mate. Come on. Yes, but Dark Marn was the horse he was up against, and to this day, some people swear that Dark Marn actually won the race. So it's known as the photo finish that wasn't, and remains quite an enduring controversy. But, entertaining too.
That is entertaining. Very entertaining. Do you want to know who the first jockey of Indigenous heritage to ride a Melbourne Cup winner was?
I do. I really do.
It was now a chap called Frank Reyes in 1973 who rode Gala Supreme. He had a Filipino father and a half Aboriginal mother.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
And he'd been riding over the 3,200 metres that you mentioned at the beginning, because prior to 1972, it was a 2-mile event. Yes. And by changing it to a 3,000, because Australia went metric in 1972, and as a result of that, they changed it from 2 miles to 3,200 metres, which is actually 18 metres shorter than it used to be. So it used to be 3,218 metres due to the wonderful nature of the mile, but it meant that they adjusted the old records slightly.
Yes.
Yeah, they just tweaked the old records down slightly to account for it. And Piping Lane became the first to win the Cup under the new metric distance. And as you mentioned, second winner there.
Yeah, that is really good. First female to ride in the Melbourne Cup?
I have this, but you can tell us.
No, go ahead. I just like the name of the horse.
Marie Linden was the first female jockey to ride in the Melbourne Cup. Is that right?
It is right.
Competing aboard Argonaut style, I think, but it's a great name.
It is a great name.
She didn't place, but she broke a barrier. Yeah. Obviously,
she ran second last in a 21 horse field. You're being very generous there, but that isn't the point.
That is not the point.
It is not the point.
That was just to hop back to something far less important. That was 2 years after the event for the first time became $1 million event. Obviously Australian dollars. 1985. So when we were talking about the money going up, it's gone up even more since then as well.
Mm-hmm.
But more importantly, Marcy Linden.
Yeah, and then she wasn't even the first Australian female jockey, I don't think. I think that was a lady called Claire Lindop on Devon in 2003. But she got to ride before the biggest crowd ever, which in 2003 was 122,736 people in the stadium.
I love how we've gone from, if you think about like the 1923 FA Cup final, somewhere about 250,000 to an absolutely exact number there.
Yeah, monster.
God bless modern ticket counting.
And then
it's impressive.
It's very impressive. And then the first female jockey to win the cup was Michelle Payne on the Prince of Penzance, who became only the fourth horse to win at odds of 100 to 1, which just adds to the romance of that story. That is
so romantic. And she remains actually the only female jockey to win it, but I love that story.
Yeah, it's really good.
This is what I mean about horse racing. You don't have to look far, and I've got a whole list of like great stories here that I'm just going to skim past because there's so many.
Mrs. Alan MacDonald, is she one of them?
I don't think so. I think this is a story I don't have written down, so please tell me.
I'll keep it brief, but like in 1938, the Melbourne Cup was won by trainer Mrs. Alan MacDonald, who conditioned Catalogue. She was a very successful trainer in her own right in New Zealand. However, at the time, women were not allowed to compete as trainers in Australia. So her husband's name was officially recorded as the winning trainer. So she wasn't actually given the accolade, but it is, widely known that she was the first trainer really to train a Melbourne Cup winning horse. The 2001 edition was won by Ethereal, which was trained by Sheila Laxon, and she is the first woman to be formally recognised as the winning trainer of a Melbourne Cup winner. And she's also from New Zealand. The horse is from New Zealand. I don't know where Sheila Laxon's from. Sorry, Sheila. With a name like Sheila.
Probably Australia.
Probably Australia, to be cliche about it.
Either way, fantastic achievements, both of them.
Yeah. But that's the thing. The story's deluxe, mate. 2011 is another great one. the French-based horse Dunedin won from Red Cadu in the closest finish ever.
Did they get the photo finish working, that one?
Yeah, I think so. They hit the line together. Closest photo finish in Melbourne Cup history. Dunedin won by somewhere between 5 and 10 centimetres. Red Cadu is the only horse to have finished second in the race on 3 occasions, which is gutting.
It is, but you still get a decent amount of prize money for finishing second, so
you get some Benjamins in this race. Is that a good transition into the cash?
I thought it was a good moment, yeah.
Yeah, purse. Have a guess, unless you know. In which case, say.
I didn't write it down, so I don't know. Was it $6 million or something like that?
10 million Australian dollars, 6.5 million.
My mistake.
US. First 12 past the post receive prize money. The winner takes home a cool 4.4 million Australian dollars.
If you want Australian dollars into pounds, just cut it in half. Basically 50% now.
Okay, big money then. 2.2 mil.
Yeah.
Second, 1.1 million for coming second. Third, 550,000 Australian dollars. Fourth, 350,000. Fifth, 230,000. And then 6th through 12th all earn 160,000 each. And then I think the prize money, I thought this was interesting, if it is correct, is distributed in the ratio of 85% to the owner, 10% to the trainer, and 5% to the jockey, which also is a bit of a piss take because the owner's done fuck all there.
I mean,
it's an investment. I understand how the business works, but joke.
I wish the percentages were tweaked slightly. I'd take 75, 15 and 10 over that, but nevertheless, it is what it is.
What a Nuisance was the name of that horse that won the first ever $1 million race.
Good name.
It's a great name. That's the only reason I mentioned it again. But you don't just get cash if you win the Melbourne Cup. No. You get more than that.
Do you get the Melbourne Cup?
You get the Melbourne Cup. The first winner of the Melbourne Cup, as you've already mentioned, got a gold watch. Then there was a trophy, which was basically an elaborate silver bowl. I think that's now in a museum somewhere, at a wine bar, in fact. Very random.
That's not very Australian. Should be in a pub at least.
And then the first existing and unaltered Melbourne Cup was created in 1866. That's as of 2013 in the National Museum of Australia. Oh, God. Anyway, look, now, rather than doing this excruciating exercise, now a new trophy is made every single year, becomes the property of the winning owner. In the event of a dead heat, there is a second cup on hand. The present trophy is hand spun from 1.65 kilograms of 18-carat gold. It is made by ABC Bullion, a Pallion company which was awarded the rights to make the Melbourne Cup. It's produced specifically by W.J. Sanders, a sister division of Pallion, and takes over 250 hours to make, apparently.
Solid.
And it is solid gold. The winning trainer and jockey receive a miniature replica,
probably for the best,
of the cup. So that's
that's what you get. I heard a number, because it's so full of gold. If you were just to melt it down and sell it, it would be like $250,000, or something like that, just in the gold value alone. Let alone obviously the historical value and everything else that comes with it.
Yeah, it's really expensive.
Full of gold.
It's actually not that easy to get into the Melbourne Cup either. Did you know anything about the entry system?
So I know how it was. I don't know if it's changed more recently, but effectively you have like a stage system where you initially enter and have to pay a deposit, and then if you get accepted, it's your choice then to proceed or not, based on like what weight you're given at that point. But if you don't choose to proceed, you lose that deposit basically.
Yeah, it costs about 50,000 Australian dollars all in if you make it to the start line. Basically, the process starts in August. Initial entry fee, just to sort of register, I guess, like you say, $600 per horse. You normally get about 300 to 400 horses nominated each year. Obviously, the final field is now limited to 24 starters?
Yes, 24 starters.
For safety reasons, predominantly. There are then a series of weights allocated. We'll come on to handicapping in just a moment. But the owner of each horse basically has to, as you say, declare or accept their progress through the various phases, and there are 4 occasions on which they do that. First acceptance is another $960. Second is $1,500. Third is $2,500, and then the final one, which is the Saturday prior to the race, is $45,000. If your horse is balloted out of the field, then the final declaration fee is obviously refunded. Race directors basically can exclude any horse from the race or exempt any horse from the ballot. But in order to reduce the field to that necessary 24, horses are generally speaking balloted out on a number of factors, including prize money earned over the previous 2 years, wins, placings in certain lead-up races, allocated handicap weight, so on and so forth. But there are a few horses that are exempt from the ballot, which are the winner of the Lexus Stakes, Cox Plate, Caulfield Cup, the Bart Cummings, the Andrew Ramsden Stakes, the Ebor York Festival, and the Roy Higgins Quality. And that's it.
Yeah, it'll be Ebor, named for the Ebor Festival in York.
Ah, nice. There you are. Symbiosis across the world.
Indeed.
Handicapping then, because we said it was a handicap race.
It is.
This is not a straightforward handicapping exercise. Do you want to explain it, or shall I try?
No, please go ahead. Please, for the love of God, go ahead.
Handicapping in its most basic form, as we have discussed before, is essentially designed to level the playing field, give each horse an equal chance of winning. But this has been changed in the Melbourne Cup. It's adjusted, and it's called a quality handicap. There's a formula, basically, by which superior horses are given a less severe weight penalty than under pure handicapping rules.
Yeah.
I guess that's so as to not disadvantage the very talented, which I think is probably more of a meritocracy, to be fair, but I imagine it's a fairly arbitrary assessment. The minimum handicap weight is 50 kilograms. There is no maximum weight, but the top allocated weight must not be less than 57 kilograms. Older horses tend to carry more weight than younger horses, presumably because they're bigger and stronger, etc., etc. And then the weights are then adjusted on a series of other factors, including the horse's race results. And it's declared by the Victoria Racecourse handicapper in early September. And then after the declaration of weights, this is where it's so fucking complicated. It can still be changed. So the winner of any handicap flat race of an advertised value of 55,000 Australian dollars or over, or an internationally recognised listed group or graded handicap flat race will carry additional weight for each win as the Victoria Racecourse handicapper determines, which is complicated.
Simple.
Either way, said the opposite of each other there. And if you are coming from abroad, because we've spoken a little bit about some foreign raids, any international horses except those from New Zealand have to undergo the quarantine period in approved premises for a minimum period of 14 days before travelling to Australia. And then once in Australia, they have to meet Australian government standards for quarantine stations as well. So anyone who knows anything about Australia, they have very, very tight rules in that regard.
For good reason, yeah.
Yeah. They've had some issues in the past with alien species entering their ecosystem. Foreign raids, since we mentioned them, there haven't been many. I think 1910 Melbourne Cup was won by Comedy King, first foreign-bred racehorse to win it. Subsequently, foreign-bred racehorses were backward, 24. The aforementioned and legendary Farlap, 1930. Wotan, 1936. Belldale Ball in 1980 was At Talack, 1986 Kingston Rule, 1990 was Vintage Crop, and then there's a few others through the 90s. Maccabee Diva, obviously, and basically one of them, the reason I've said all of this is one of them was won 2 wins for Irish trainer Dermot K. Weld, successful in 93 and 2002. But he's won 2, but he is something of a legend. He's from Kildare in Ireland. He's won the Irish Flat Training Championship 8 times, the Irish St. Leger, the Irish Oaks, the Epsom Derby, the Oaks, the 2000 Guineas, Longchamp, the American Derby, the Belmont, and the Breeders' Cup. So this guy knows what he's doing.
I was going to say, it's a bit of something everywhere, that.
Yeah. But I mean, we've basically spoken about everything apart from the records and the racecourse.
Yeah.
Want to say anything about Flemington?
The only thing I really know about it, other than its history as mentioned, is it's a pear-shaped racecourse.
It is.
Which is kind of fun. Basically means you have one narrow turn and one really wide sweeping turn to make it pear-shaped.
Pear-shaped indeed it is. It is the flagship of the Australian horse racing armada, is the best way to put it.
That's a very good way of putting it. It's very poetic, Ben.
You're welcome. I do my best, and sometimes I accidentally succeed. It's, it's just a cool place. I mean, Final Straight's 450 meters long, boasts a 6 furlong or 1,200 meter straight known as the Straight 6. They run in an anti-clockwise direction. There are 3 grandstands there. Maximum capacity now is 120,000 that is. And this is because I love these tangents, and it's been a while, so here I am. It was added to the Australian National Heritage List in November 2006 and is listed on the Victorian Heritage Register. Now, what does that mean? Basically, the Australian National Heritage List is a list of national heritage places deemed to be of outstanding heritage significance to Australia. It is not easy to get listed. There are 9 criteria, and then even if you fulfill that 9 criteria, there is a significance threshold that you have to pass. If you get past that, then the Heritage Council will do you the solid of making a recommendation to the Minister for Environment, who will then make the determination on whether or not you go on the list.
And they made it on the list.
For all the reasons that you so beautifully articulated in terms of its history and its background and its cultural significance in terms of horse racing in Australia.
Cultural significance alone. It's almost as old as Melbourne itself, barring 25 years. It's ingrained, and horse tracks have been built from the very beginning in Australia. It is an obsession. It is a national obsession. It runs deep, as a lot of things do in Australia, and the Australians do it so very well.
They do it very, very well. And just to stoke the fires for any Australians that do happen to tune in, New South Wales edges Victoria 36-32 in heritage sites.
Ooh.
I know.
It is older, to be fair.
Yeah, it's older, and it is, but Flemington's is an esteemed company on that list. It includes the G, the MCG, which we will be talking
Love
about
it.
in detail as the Ashes start soon. The Great Barrier Reef is on the list. Uluru is on the list. Bondi Beach.
Fair enough.
Obviously the Sydney Harbour Bridge and Sydney Opera House as well, amongst
Of course.
many other sites. But yeah, records?
What we got, I think the fastest race
Yeah.
was 1990, which was Kingston Rule, trained by Bart Cummings, of course. 3 minutes, 16.3 seconds.
Nice, that is quick. Will it ever be beaten?
I don't know, it may well have been beaten in the times since the article I read that on was written. But let's hope not.
What other ones are there that are worth mentioning? I liked this one. I wonder how often do you think the favourite has won the Melbourne Cup?
Ooh, well, in any horse race, probably, 1 in 24 would be a baseline. You'd imagine the favourites win it more often than that. Probably about 10 in 24. No, probably too high. Quarter of the time, so call it maybe 40.
What is in 40% or is in 40 out of
40 races.
occasions? So not a bad guess. 34 out of 150 favourites, which is 23% apparently.
Okay.
If that stat is correct, I have to say haven't verified that, but yeah, it just captured the imagination a little bit. So if you bet on the favourite every year, you should win basically 1 in 4, which means you'll lose money.
Which means you'll lose money.
Yeah.
Which again goes to show why betting is silly.
Yeah.
But
Foolhardy.
if you're going to do it anywhere,
Shoot for the moon.
if you're going to do it anywhere, save up. Do it for the Grand National. Do it for the Melbourne Cup. Do it for the Kentucky Derby.
And vote with your heart.
That's what I did last year for the this year for the National, and I bloody won, didn't I?
Yeah. So yes, I thought that was fun. 100-1 winners. We mentioned one of them, which is the first female winner on Prince of Penzance.
Yes.
But there have been 4 in total. The Pearl in 1871, Wotan in 1936, who was one of our foreign raiders, and Old Rowley in 1940.
It is actually interesting that you're only about 8.5 times more likely to win with betting on the favourite as you are betting on 100-1 outsider.
Yeah.
And the odds are certainly better than...
So if you bet on 100-1 every time...
If you do, yeah, you're probably...
making money.
Based on that, you might have to do it most of your adult life, but eventually you'll make some money out of it.
You'll be like $20 up or something.
Theoretically.
Yeah, theoretically. I mean, I think we've mentioned already the most legendary horse in the event. There is only one horse to have won it 3 times. Her name is, to repeat it,
Maccabi Diva.
Yeah. 2003, 2004, 2005. She's also the only mare to win it more than once. Mare being a female horse.
Incredible horse. I mean, do you know where her name came from?
No.
So 5 women who worked for her owner, called Maureen, Kylie, Belinda, Diane and Vanessa. The first 2 letters of each of their names, M-A-K-Y-B-E, and then D-I and V-A, is Maccabi Diva.
That's great. Is it Maccabi or Maccabee?
It's good. Maccabee. It might be Maccabee, to be fair. Sorry.
No, it doesn't matter. I'm just, like, unless you hear the actual person who named it or someone who knows how to pronounce it, say it before you. It is just guesswork.
It is very difficult from this side of the mic, isn't it? That's why anytime I'm making my note on something, I always phoneticize things to try and get it right.
No, it's like an absolutely legendary horse. And as we quoted earlier, the trainer has quite rightly said, like, it'll never be seen again in any of our lifetimes, probably, unless something freakishly anomalous happens.
Yeah, it was 2005 when she was going out to try and win her 3rd, and it was the trainer Lee Friedman famously told jockey Glenn Boss before the race, go out there and make her immortal. Such a good way of putting it.
That is a great way of putting it. And accurate, because it is immortality. She'll be remembered forever.
I mean, as I mentioned at the beginning, obviously, short races. It's not too short race, this one. It's over about 3 minutes. So it's slightly longer than, for example, the Kentucky Derby, which is 2 minutes, famously. But they tend to be bossed by younger horses. So the chances of you winning it and sustaining that level of performance 3 years in a row, and bearing in mind you're getting handicapped as well. So if you won it 2 years in a row, you're going to be the high handicapped horse on that track. To win it 3 times in a row is a remarkable achievement. But she has good pedigree.
Did she? Yes, you were going to say about that, actually.
I did, yeah. I mentioned this beforehand. So, do you remember back in episode 5 our episode on the Triple Crown of American horse racing, you signed off, I believe, on a horse called Northern Dancer, who was the Canadian winner of the 1964 Kentucky Derby and Preakness Stakes, but did not win the Belmont to finish it off.
Didn't win the Triple Crown, yeah. But it's the one where the Canadian jockey said something really beautiful about him.
How can you be disappointed when a horse runs his heart out for you?
Yeah.
That's what he said.
Lovely.
Well, he is the grandsire, or the great-grandsire, sorry, of Maccabee Diva.
Ah, that's really nice.
Just to make it slightly less wholesome, several times over, the great-grandsire. Bit of inbreeding going on, but nevertheless, good pedigree.
Very good pedigree. That is
concentrated. Good pedigree in this case.
Thoroughbred horse racing, though. If you're going to get upset about if you're going to get upset about inbreeding, then it's not your sport.
No. I think it was only cousins in this case. At least it was to the 8th degree and not to the grandparents. But nevertheless, yeah there you go.
No, that's a great little tie back. 4 horses have won it twice. We've already mentioned...
It's crazy it's only 4. And this, again, goes to show what an achievement winning 3 times in a row is.
Yeah, mad. So, I mean, we already mentioned Archer in 61-62, Screwed in 63, Peter Pan, 32 and 34, the first to win it twice since Archer, but not back-to-back. Rain Lover, only the second horse to ever defend it, 68 and 69, and then that was followed up by Think Big, 74 and 75. I mean, because we like an underdog and we're never too disappointed by failure as Englishmen in sporting circles. So a little mention in dispatches to Shadow King, who made 6 attempts to win the Cup in 7 years between 29 and 35 and ran 6th, 3rd, 2nd, 3rd, 2nd and 4th.
Tip my hat to that. If you'd have bet on him to place every time, you'd have made probably money back on that. Probably made a profit from that.
Yeah, for sure. We haven't really spoken about the jockeys, and I don't know much about them other than, firstly, they're hardcore, because we always pay homage to the toughness of jockeys, especially in jump racing, but equally as applicable to flat racing. I think it's still a brutal sport.
Yeah, it can be.
Bobby Lewis and Harry White have both won 4 of them.
Very nice.
They hold the record together. Yeah, I mean, I didn't have anything else really to talk about the Melbourne Cup. I just, like we do, we just want to tease the event, preview it, give it a little bit of the history, hopefully spark some fires.
Yeah, I've got one thing to mention right at the end, but it is important to mention to anyone listening to this in the United Kingdom, if you do want to watch the Melbourne Cup, you got to get up early.
Yes, you do.
Is it 4 a.m. it starts?
Something like that.
Yeah, British time.
Yeah, it's like the middle of the afternoon in Australia, isn't it?
Yeah, so it'll be late night in the United States. You'll be okay. Midnight on the East Coast, would it be? Maybe 11 p.m, depending on whether you've got daylight saving time yet or not. But yeah, we're the ones who get screwed by it.
Yeah, we are. 4 a.m.
That being said, I'm up for work at 5 a.m. anyway, so I might set my alarm an hour early.
For sure. Yeah, what did you want to say? Is that what you wanted to say about it?
No.
I didn't think it would be.
Are we done? Because I have a story to close on, because look at the date, Ben. Think of the date this episode is getting released on. It's spooky week.
Yes, it is October. Halloween.
I have a spooky story. If you would like to hear it.
I would like to hear it. Before we hear it, just quickly say, last year's winner, Knight's Choice. This year's favourites. It'll change probably between now and this episode, but your early favourites are half yours, Al Riffer. There's a couple of others. The Australians will know better than I do. I am really just going off what the internet is telling me. So yes.
It's a useful tool. Let's not pretend it isn't.
To Halloween.
So, as I said, being as this episode will be released just a few short days before that most spooky of nights, Halloween, I thought I'd end on one of the more creepy tales in the long run of the Melbourne Cup. In the chill of late winter 1870, so like June, I think, in Australia.
That's weird.
That's when the winter is.
True. Yeah, flip it upside down.
I keep mentioning the Melbourne Cup held in the spring, in November. So, in the chill of late winter 1870, a publican named Walter Craig owns a horse called Nimblefoot. Long before the starting gun fires at Flemington, Craig tells his friends that he has had a dream. In it, his horse, wearing violet silks, strikes clear of the field on the home turn. The jockey is victorious, but yet there is something chilling, something that turns a dream of triumph into a nightmare of impending doom. The rider, in his dream, wears a black armband, a sign of mourning. Craig repeats the vision. The horse will win the cup, he says, but I shall not live to see it. And as though his dream was bound up in the ledger of fate itself, he died on the morning of 17th of August. So, well, I guess that's the end of winter, isn't it? From gout and from pneumonia. It was 3 months before the cup is run. Then comes the 10th of November 1870. Nimblefoot, at odds of 12-1, crosses the line ahead. In a 10th finish, the jockey John Day bears a mourning band on his arm, a black armband. The colours match, the timing matches, the dream seems fulfilled. It's the kind of story that quickly becomes a legend. A man glimpses the future, fate takes him early, the horse carries on to the victory as foretold. I mean, it's bollocks. It's complete bollocks, but it was probably made up by a bookmaker named Joseph Bragg Slack for publicity. But in this most spooky of weeks, maybe, just maybe, a man foresaw his own death. But he probably didn't. Good night.
But it's a good story. Yeah. Good night. Sleep well. Well, just before we go, because I've decided to go on the Victoria Racing Club's official broadcast guide to tell everyone where they can watch it. America, Fox Sports. Ireland, Virgin Media. Germany, Switzerland, Austria, We Do Sports. Over here it's Sky Sports Racing, as you might imagine. Canada is...
I guessed, yeah.
Canada is Rogers. I didn't even know that was a channel, but I do now. Africa.
You do now. There you go.
Super Sport. Scandinavia and the Netherlands, excluding Sweden, is Viaplay. Sweden is Canal 75. If anybody has joined us from India, SPN?
We have had some Indian listeners.
Yeah. Latin America, ESPN, LATAM. 50 territories over there showing it on that show. Yeah, I think that's it.
Sweet.
Probably covers most people that are that tune in to us. Asia and the Pacific, ABC International. There you go. That sort of probably completes it. And if you're in a European territory of one of the nations that I haven't mentioned, you're probably on Eurovision. Where does next week take us?
Well, next week takes us to one of the two best Grand Prix in the Formula One calendar, along with Silverstone. Takes us to Lewis Hamilton's second home. It takes us to the birthplace and home of arguably the greatest man to ever do the sport, if you believe a lot of people. It's a Brazilian Grand Prix, Sao Paulo. I'm excited. There's a lot to talk about.
It's going to be really good. You and I have a love-hate relationship with F1. We've said that previously.
A massive love-hate.
But it is, for some reason, a sport that keeps luring us back in. We go there to discuss it whilst the current Drivers' Championship is on a knife edge.
1 point in it.
1 point.
And then Verstappen
loitering.
Just over a win back. Loitering with intent.
Yeah, exactly. Constructors less exciting. McLaren,
that's done.
McLaren have won it, but there's a lot to go on still with Ferrari, Mercedes, Red Bull within 10 points of each other, and the midfield, basically Red Bull or Racing Bulls rather, down to Sauber, all within 12 points of one another. So a lot can change there, but no one is going to change in the winning. We'll talk about it all next week. Yeah,
can't wait. So yeah, have a good week.
Yes, you too, mate, and safe travels again.
I'm just hoping I can get some sleep with this jet lag. It's all I want in the world.
I'm sure you'll adjust soon enough, and it's a small price to pay for adventuring around the United States.
I am not complaining. Anyway.
See you soon.
Au revoir. That's completely the wrong thing to say. Good day, mate. I don't know. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you again for tuning back into the Almanac after our slightly late summer holiday. If you think we did the Cup justice, drop us a comment, a like or a follow. And if you hated it, comment away anyway. That's what the internet's for. In either case, please do tell your friends about us. If you do, we'll love you forever. Our theme tune is Oh Yeah by Home Only Productions. You can find us on Blue Sky and Insert at The Sporting Almanac. We'll be back next week with the Brazilian Grand Prix. And don't forget, whether you're the Red Terror reborn or 100 to 1 shot hoping for a miracle, sport is nothing without the history that makes it. Goodbye.